There's something quietly isolating about refusing help. For some, it's a simple preference, for others, it's a deeply ingrained pattern that shapes the way they experience life. You might recognize it in yourself or in someone you care about: the reluctance to reach out, the instinct to struggle alone, the subtle tension that arises when someone offers support. At first glance, it may seem like pride, stubbornness, or independence, but beneath the surface, there's often a rich and complex psychological story waiting to be understood. The roots of this behavior often begin in childhood, in the earliest experiences of trust and control. Consider a child growing up in an environment where help was inconsistent, conditional, or unreliable. Perhaps caregivers were absent, emotionally unavailable, or overly critical. In these environments, children learn that seeking support comes with risk, that asking for help may lead to disappointment, judgment, or even rejection. To cope, they develop a mindset that values self-reliance above all else. I have to do it myself, they tell themselves, not out of arrogance, but as a survival strategy. It becomes a form of psychological armor, a way to navigate a world that felt unpredictable or unsafe. As these children grow into adults, the patterns they learned continue to influence their behavior. The instinct to handle challenges alone can be remarkably strong, even when the circumstances no longer demand it. They might excel at independence, problem-solving, and resilience, but these strengths often come at a cost. Relationships can feel strained, intimacy can be limited, and stress can build quietly under the surface. The very trait that once protected them can begin to feel isolating. The psychology behind refusing help often intertwines with deeper beliefs about self-worth. Many people who struggle with this behavior tie their value to competence or achievement. Accepting help can feel like admitting weakness, and admitting weakness can feel threatening to their identity. There's an internal narrative that whispers, "If I can't do this myself, who am I?" This isn't vanity, it's a survival mechanism echoing from past experiences of inadequacy or abandonment. The mind equates independence with safety, and dependence with vulnerability. At the same time, there's often an emotional component rooted in fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of judgment, fear of losing control. Each time someone extends a helping hand, it can trigger anxiety. Will I let them down? Will I become a burden? Will they see me as incapable? These fears are not irrational, they are protective reflexes, attempts to shield oneself from potential emotional pain. But in adulthood, when social support is abundant and safe, these reflexes can feel like invisible barriers, blocking connection and growth. We also see this behavior manifest in subtle ways in daily life. A person might refuse offers of assistance at work, insisting on completing tasks alone even when overwhelmed. They might turn down friends' invitations for support during a difficult time, convincing themselves that they must cope on their own. Even in intimate relationships, they may struggle to share burdens, preferring silence over vulnerability. And yet, beneath the surface, there's often a quiet longing for support, a desire for connection tempered by fear, past experiences, and the weight of ingrained habits. It's not a lack of trust in others, necessarily, but a lack of trust in the safety of being seen as needing help. Interestingly, neuroscience offers insight into why this behavior can feel so automatic. Studies suggest that early experiences of neglect or inconsistent caregiving can shape the brain's stress response systems, making the prospect of relying on others feel physiologically uncomfortable. The amygdala, responsible for processing fear and threat, can react strongly to situations of perceived dependency. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which mediates judgment and reasoning, often rationalizes this discomfort, reinforcing the belief that independence is the safest route. Essentially, the body and mind are wired to perceive help not as a gift, but as a potential threat, and the behavior becomes self-reinforcing over time. Understanding this pattern also requires empathy. Those who refuse help are not inherently unkind or selfish, they are often hyper-aware of vulnerability. Their behavior is a coping mechanism, a strategy that has served them in the past. And yet, like all coping strategies, it can become limiting when circumstances change. The world of adulthood often demands collaboration, interdependence, and shared support. For someone who instinctively resists help, navigating these demands can be exhausting, emotionally draining, and isolating. The impact of this behavior on mental health can be subtle but profound. Chronic stress, burnout, and feelings of loneliness often accompany a refusal to accept support. It can exacerbate anxiety and depression, as the weight of challenges is borne alone, without the relief that social connection can provide. Relationships may suffer, as loved ones struggle to bridge a gap that feels impassable. And yet, the same individuals often have remarkable resilience, creativity, and problem-solving skills, forged in the crucible of self-reliance. They are survivors, but survival can sometimes come at the expense of thriving. Breaking this pattern is not about abandoning independence or undermining personal strength, it's about redefining what strength truly means. True strength encompasses the courage to be vulnerable, the wisdom to know when support is helpful, and the self-compassion to accept that needing help does not diminish worth. Change begins with awareness. Recognizing that the instinct to refuse help is not a moral failing, but a learned coping strategy, allows space for curiosity and experimentation. It might start small, accepting a cup of coffee from a friend when feeling low, delegating a task at work, or sharing a personal struggle with a loved one. Each act of acceptance rewires the brain slowly, creating new associations between help and safety. Therapeutic approaches can be especially effective in navigating this transformation. Cognitive behavioral strategies can help identify and challenge the internal narratives that link dependence to weakness. Mindfulness practices can cultivate tolerance for vulnerability and discomfort. Psychodynamic or attachment-focused therapies can explore early experiences that shape the behavior, offering insight and healing for past wounds. Over time, these interventions can reduce the automatic fear response, making the experience of receiving help feel safe, rather than threatening. Equally important is self-compassion. Many who struggle to accept help are harsh self-critics, viewing every act of dependence as failure. By cultivating kindness toward oneself, it becomes easier to recognize that asking for support is a human need, not a flaw. Self-compassion creates the psychological space to embrace interdependence without losing a sense of identity or strength. It allows the mind to reframe help not as a sign of inadequacy, but as a source of connection, learning, and growth. Ultimately, the journey toward accepting help is a journey toward wholeness. It is about building a life where resilience and vulnerability coexist, where independence and interdependence are balanced, and where personal strength is measured not by solitude, but by the courage to connect. Every time someone allows themselves to receive support, they are rewriting the story their mind has told them for decades, a story that once served survival but now limits fulfillment. Each act of acceptance is a small victory, a step toward richer relationships, greater emotional well-being, and a deeper sense of self. So, if you recognize this pattern in yourself, know this: your struggle to accept help is not a sign of weakness. It is a signal, an invitation to explore, understand, and heal. The path may feel uncomfortable at first, because it challenges old habits and long-held beliefs. But with patience, self-compassion, and conscious practice, it is possible to embrace support without fear, to experience vulnerability without shame, and to live a life that balances strength with connection. In learning to accept help, you are not losing independence, you are gaining freedom. Freedom to be human, to be connected, and to thrive.